Radio Energy, broadcasting to you live. Go to radioenerg.net.
This is the Football Roundup on Radio Energy. Good afternoon, I'm Jamie Braidwood, and once again I'm joined by David Ronney, Bryce Donaldson and Luke Barry. This afternoon we'll be talking about all things Champions League, with Spurs and Celtic crashing out and Leicester, Arsenal and Man City qualifying to the last 16. We'll be giving you a full recap of this week's Champions League results. But we're going to crack on first with Celtic's result from last night. They were beaten 2-0 at home by Barcelona. Lionel Messi, he scored twice. One was a penalty and one was a lovely finish from Neymar pass. I think, David, is it fair to say that Barcelona were just simply too good for Celtic on this evening?
Yeah, I think that's just what it comes down to. I think Celtic played really well in the first half, maybe lost a bit of touch in the second half when that second goal went in, and I think they knew themselves that they had to get a result this game, a draw or a win at that, and they had to hope that Manchester City win, and Manchester City did not win. They drew with Borussia Dortmund away. So it was a tough night for Celtic fans alike, and past few seasons we've seen Celtic play in Europa League, and this season we won't get that again because we're finishing bottom. And it was a tough group on paper, and I think the group panned out what most people expect. Manchester City finished second, Barcelona top, and Mönchengladbach I think was the real contender to get that third spot with us, and Celtic were just outplayed in the games. And there's a lot of positives you can take from it. I think Celtic played really well in the games they've had. They've still got a game left, Manchester City away, which our own Michael Gawkin will be travelling down for. But as I said, they were just tough teams and a tough group, and Brendan Rodgers I think could take a lot of positives from this, and if he does choose to stay for a second season and gets Champions League football again, and maybe we have a bit more luck with the group we're drawn with, then Celtic can potentially go very far.
Very far, okay. And Bryce, it was a disappointing result for Celtic, but it was an improvement on that 7-0 result that Barcelona recorded over Celtic at the Nou Camp a few weeks ago. So I guess sign of improvement, sign of progress under Brendan Rodgers?
Yeah, I mean, there was a big improvement really. So I mean, give them a couple more games and eventually they might win against them. But no, it's hard to say if you give them a better group, I think, because obviously being in the Champions League, every team is played to get there. Every team's a good team. Celtic were just kind of a wee bit unlucky at times, but I can see them improving under Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, and it's harsh, Luke, isn't it, that the fact that Celtic are out of Europe completely. I mean, it would have been interesting to see Brendan Rodgers' side maybe tackle a few teams in the Europa League, but now they have absolutely nothing to look forward to.
I think so.
That sounds a bit bleak. They do have the league.
They have the cup. They have the cup final on Sunday as well.
So what would Brendan Rodgers' aims be for the rest of the season?
Well, I think obviously he'll need to win the league. That'll be primary job. And I think, to be honest, the way he's going, I don't see anyone else beating Celtic at the minute. But they've got the cups, and I think just maintaining a good style of football that keeps the fans happy. Because I know that a lot of the fans are happy with the way Celtic are playing just now. And I do think it's a shame for them not to have got more European experience, because this was the first season in a good while they've actually had a good Champions League. Well, I say a good Champions League run, it was mixed, but they had a run in the Champions League. And I know it's somewhere where the Celtic actually do want to be. So the Europa League would have given them some experience to play other teams as well. But in relation to aims, I think he'll just want to keep up what he's done, because are they unbeaten still in the league?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, you can't really ask for much better than that, can you?
No, I mean you can't. Before we go any further, I'm going to quickly read out this afternoon's teaser, which is, on Saturday, Jermaine Defoe became the 8th player to score 150 Premier League goals. Can you name the other 7? So if you know the answer, or if you know any of the players that have scored more than 150 Premier League goals, then get in touch on Twitter at Radio Energy. And we can give you some clues during the afternoon if you're struggling. But moving on, Leicester, last year's champions. They're through to the Champions League knockout stages, which is just such an incredible sentence to say. I'm not really sure that I'm saying it. And they've done it with a game to spare after they beat Bruges by 2-1. That means they top their group, 5 points clear. It's incredible, isn't it, David?
Yes, I think 3 years ago under Nigel Pearce, who thought Leicester are a relegation battling side. They might so be this season as well, but
That's true.
um,
What was your stat, Luke?
Well, they actually do have Leicester 13 points in the Champions League group, but 12 in the Premier League. So it's pretty incredible. It does kind of show the switch of focus. But we'll go back to you, David.
yeah, the fact that a few seasons ago, Leicester would have been written off, even when Claudio Ranieri came in, likes of, say, Gary Lineker wrote him off, saying it was a kind of a weird decision appointing him. But since he's done wonders, he's won them a title. He's got them through in the Champions League into the knockout stages, and I think it's just the fairy tale dream goes on for Leicester fans and players alike.
Why can't they do this in the league, Bryce? What I mean, Luke said they've only had 12 points in the league this season. They've played maybe 12 games. They've played 5 in the Champions League, and they've got 13 points. How are they doing this?
They do have kind of a different focus at him. I think different players are kind of getting rotated in. They are starting different lineups quite often, which means that players not playing regularly with other teammates throws in a wee bit of confusion sometimes. I mean, one player that doesn't get a lot of league time is Shinji Okazawa, and he was amazing last night.
Yeah, he scored the opening goal, didn't he? Yeah.
It's very lively indeed.
I think as well you've got to take the fact that Kante left in the summer, and he was a real key part of that Leicester squad this season. And you've seen their flow from defence to attack is just missing in the league this season. They're doing all right in the Champions League, top in their group and get through knockout stages, but I feel the signings they made didn't really fill the gap that Kante made, and Kante himself is still doing the same thing he did at Leicester, is now doing it at Chelsea.
Yeah, and Leicester's next game in the group stages will be Porto at home, and I reckon you could probably say that would be Leicester's, I guess, first glamour tie maybe in the Champions League so far, because they have played Copenhagen, they've played Bruges, but Porto, who won the Champions League in 2004, they're an established European team. Is that would maybe be the first glamour tie that they have, but it doesn't matter because ultimately they're through. So how do you see them progressing now in the Champions League? Should they maybe get drawn against someone a bit more prolific in the next round?
You see, that I think it all does come down to the draw for the round of 16. But having won the group, they put themselves in the best possible position they can.
Theoretically, but we will talk about Bayern Munich later on in the show.
That's very true. But to be honest, being a Leicester fan right now must be so strange, because obviously your team has just won the league, which nobody would have expected on the back of such a poor season, and now you're in the round of 16 for the Champions League, which I don't think anyone could have expected ever. So obviously they'll be proud of the fact they've got there, but when you're in the competition, you're always going to want to do as well as you can. So, I mean, to be honest, it's hard to know whether they'd rather go really far in the Champions League and do almost be relegated in the Premier League, or if they settle for maybe a round of 16 or potentially quarter-final, but also get in that top 10 in the league. I mean, if there are any Leicester fans listening, it'd be great for you to let us know. But it does all depend on the draw, I think, because I think now they don't have so much the element of surprise about it, because people have seen how they play now, which might be a struggle for them, but at home they'll have a good chance.
Yeah, I still think someone somewhere has just woken up from a coma, and they've just seen that Leicester have won the league and they're now in the knockout stages of the Champions League.
Personally, I can't see Leicester struggling too much in the league, because I think as soon as they notice problems, they'll switch their focus back.
Do you think Leicester can go on and win the Champions League itself?
Well, we'll take it one step at a time.
You never know.
Yeah.
Everyone wrote them off for the Premier League, so
exactly.
we won't do them this time round either.
As Leicester progressed, Spurs crashed out. Spurs were Leicester's, by the end of last season, they were their biggest rivals, but they've now crashed out of the Champions League. They were beaten 2-1 away by Monaco, which means they can't qualify for the next round. It's been an awful campaign, really. I mean, there's no other way you can put it. Big defeats. They've lost home and away against Monaco. They had that bad result against Bayer Leverkusen at Wembley. It just hasn't happened for them, has it, David?
I think, and you really can't put your finger on it. Maybe it's their home games are struggling. People are saying it's the curse of Wembley. They not feel like they're at home when they technically are at home. There's that psychological aspect to the game as well, and I think the players have just undermined the challenge of the Champions League from the Europa League. I think teams are a lot more hungrier for this competition than Europa League. Europa League, I think a lot of teams see as a chore rather than like a privilege. And Spurs will have to try and aim for that Europa League once again, and that's if Pochettino wants more games to deal with, especially on a Thursday night when you've got the league at the weekend. It's if anything, it's more of a pain for Pochettino's squad now, because they've got to focus on these two competitions, League and Champions League, and Europa League, sorry, and there's always the risk of injury, and if you're playing these games so close to each other, then you're going to risk your players getting injured, and then what does that tell you for your league campaign? So it's just difficult.
It must be so frustrating for Tottenham fans, having done so well last season to qualify for the Champions League, to then be eliminated so meekly from the competition. They've only played 5 games, they've only had a win, a draw, and they've had 3 defeats. It must be so frustrating for them, Bryce.
Yeah, I mean, they are still doing really well in the league, and
they're still undefeated in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of almost their biggest problem in that respect. If players are playing so well in the league, they're then going into Champions League matches really tired, and I mean, you can't ask too much of players, is all I'd say.
Yeah, they had a really big win at the weekend as well, with that 3-2 win over West Ham, in which they were facing losing the first game in the league, when they were 2-1 down with 85 minutes to go. But they turned that around. They won 3 goals to do, and I maybe thought they would have kicked on from there, but they haven't. If you were Pochettino, Luke, would you go for the Europa League now? Would you go into that last game against CSKA Moscow, try and win it and try and qualify for the Europa League? Or would you maybe put out a bit of a weakened team and maybe say that, if we don't qualify for the Champions League, for the Europa League, it's not a bad thing? What would you do?
I mean, I would never encourage going into a game trying to lose, but I don't think...
Of course you can, Luke. You can always do that.
I don't think any of anyone associated with Spurs will want to be back in the Europa League, especially because they've been there for a good 3 or 4 years and not really achieved much. Having been in the Champions League, I think going back into the league will only hurt their league campaign. And after the disappointment of last year, because I know obviously they're still a young team, but it can be branded as a disappointment. I think they'll want to do really well in the league and qualify for the Champions League again. So to give them that edge that perhaps like the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea have with no European football, they'll want to possibly eradicate it. I mean, if they get the Europa League, I'm sure they'll try and do their best and win it. But if they're going to do well in the league, I think they'll be much better served not having that to worry about.
Yeah, and I'm quite frustrated as well. I can't imagine being a Spurs fan, because I actually quite like watching the Spurs team, and I would have really enjoyed watching them, come up against, I would say a Barcelona or Real Madrid or someone.
And there was an interesting stat as well. I think Spurs were it's the top 2 teams from each group with the highest earnings for the wages and all that. And Spurs were the only team not to get through. All the other teams in all the other groups who have the highest wages all got through, apart from Spurs.
Yeah, so they have underperformed.
Get in touch. Go on. Tweet at Radio ENRG. Email radioenrg@gmail.com.